Hi, everybody. Welcome to PBA 305, American Public Policy, where American public policy comes alive. We are having an exciting start to week 2 here in the fall semester of 2018. We have not only kicked off an exciting policy discussion, but we've met our little helpers. We have Dixie, and Emmy is actually with her grandmother tonight. So it's just Dixie and I tonight joining you, but we wanted to welcome you to the week, and hope that you had a very, very happy Labor Day. Dixie, are you very excited to say hi to everybody? You're just going to say hi to everybody. Say happy Labor Day. Hope you had a good Labor Day, everybody. Yay. Yay. Okay. All right. We'll see you later. All right. Be good. Okay. So we are, in fact, kicking up a very exciting week 2 for American public policy. We're going to get into the policy implementation structure and some of the outstanding ways that we tend to do things in our country to get policies implemented. Okay, so basically the main format that we're going to go through, and I'm going to go through this a little bit. This is just a very big picture structure of how a policy is made in our country. And I would say from the get-go that making policy is very complicated, and it never really always works out the same, and probably never actually to a T the way I'm about to explain. But this is the traditional policy formulation structure and policy setting structure in our country. So I'm just going to go ahead and run through. First of all, there's a problem generally that's identified, or a need that's identified. Okay, and then you go into what's called, so that's called agenda setting. You've identified a problem and you said, hey, there is actually something that we need to do. We need to put this item on the agenda, and we need to turn this item into a policy issue so that we can pursue it, okay? And then the next thing that happens is that there is a policy formulated that will ideally answer this question or solve this problem, meet this need in our country, okay? For example, when the Affordable Care Act was formulated, it was perceived by the decision makers in our country that we had an inadequate and over-costly care system, and many people were being left behind. That was openly and continues to be openly debated, but that's what the decision makers at the time decided, and they passed a law called the Affordable Care Act and Patient Protection Act of 2010 that is still in act and is still in force. And so that policy was formulated. At the time, you also, after formulating a policy in response to a need, have to legitimize that policy. And a lot of times that comes into getting the many and varied parties of people that are involved to legitimize and provide support for that. It also requires a tremendous amount of research to say, hey, we have a need here. We have a desire to cause action. We need to get funding together. We need to get an executive agency on board to implement this policy. We need to get this thing taken care of so that we can solve this great need that we've identified. And so a lot of times that's where politics come on board, bringing in multiple parties, advancing issues down the line. So again, we've set the agenda, we've gone into policy formulation, and we've now legitimized this policy. We've got everybody behind it. We've got the support we believe it needs. And then we're going to implement that policy. Finally, we're going to vote. We're going to put together a vote, and we're going to pass this policy. And ideally, that policy is going to be funded by the federal government. If it's not funded, a lot of times, hey, it was all for naught because there's no fuel to the fire, so to speak. Let's see. After the law is passed, after a law is enacted and it's funded, many times an executive agency or a state agency or a local municipality will be tasked to enact this policy and to give it a vehicle forward to basically enforce the policy or administer it, okay? And so going back to the Affordable Care Act, we have the HHS, the Health and Human Services Department, United States Health and Human Services Department, that oversees that policy. It's been tested. The policy, in fact, has been tested several times in front of the Supreme Court, and it's still in act and it's still being funded and administered. Okay. We have also, after the policy is implemented, we're going to have an ongoing evaluation. Okay, and we're going to say that this policy is actually conceptually, doing what it's supposed to be doing, or it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. We're going to test it. We're going to evaluate it. And then finally, after the program or the policies are evaluated, we're actually going to seek to, depending on what we find out, change that policy. If it's not actually doing what we thought it was going to do, if it's not doing its job, then we're going to go ahead and change that policy and make it something new. We're going to say, switch gears. Again, this is a very rapid run through of the traditional stages of policy implementation, but I wanted to give you a big picture setting. Now, in the module today, there are a lot of different other methods and outliers that revolve around this process or that are separate processes from this, and they're all valid and they all come into play. But for the purposes of today, or just what we're doing today, going to look at them for the purposes of the introduction into this. We're going to look at these traditional stages. So, agenda setting, policy formulation, policy legitimation, policy implementation, policy and program evaluation, and policy change. Okay. One example, other than healthcare, if you look at the recent tax cuts, this the current administration has passed, very hotly debated, but there was a need by the current decision makers identified saying, hey, we need to relax our regulations. We need to relax our tax burden on businesses and families. And so we're going to reduce taxes significantly. Now, it's hotly debated, on whom each tax was lowered or increased and everything. But in the final analysis, there was a tax change that happened, and people are being taxed differently as a result of a need identified from decision makers. And so we're still in a policy implementation phase with that, and we will continue to go in through a evaluation of that and look to see the results. Currently, the economy is doing really well. The Federal Reserve is going to be raising rates likely again in September to hopefully cool down the economy a little bit, because they're not necessarily concerned, but they do validate that the economy is doing really, really well right now, which is a great thing. But they're going to raise rates. Inflation is increasing back to traditional levels. Employment is at back to all-time highs, which is really good. And so we can't necessarily relate that to tax cuts, but we can say, hey, the economy is doing great right now, so it's maybe not hurting anything. But just these objective evaluations that we give to our policies that are being implemented are important, so we can know, is it working? Is it not? Okay. Another one, national defense. After 2001, when the attacks on the towers happened, okay, here we are. We're in a completely new realm, literally in a split second, a new realm of national defense policy. In one split second, when those airplanes hit those towers, our national defense became anti-terrorism. Before that, it was a blip on the radar, comparatively speaking, but after that, it was all systems go anti-terrorism, and for all intents and purposes. And so, I think that's very clearly has been an ongoing effort, and I would argue that it's been very successful, because we haven't had a major terrorist attack from a foreign power or country or organization since that's been significant. So I think we are in a very a very exciting time for policy, for studying policy, and I look forward to working with you guys. You guys, I think, did a great job on your quiz getting started this week, and I also think we averaged like 90% on that. It's really good. And then we also had a good writing assignment response and your discussions. I enjoyed getting to know you guys a little bit. I enjoyed it. Look forward to getting to know you guys over the semester. I'll hopefully have some kind of real world insights I can provide into the policy world, public administration world, private world, etc., where we can get some good conversations going here. I want to remind you, I'm pretty much always available. Honestly, call me, text me anytime. And my cell is 936-205-8236, or feel free to reach out through email. All right, well, we'll look forward to talking to you, and y'all have a great rest of your week, and let me know if you need anything. Thanks so much.